Hey, welcome to another edition of Influence Today with Chet Tart and Terry Lyles. I want to start with a slogan that I use a lot. Stories tell, facts sell. Or is it the other way around?
It's the other way
St-
around.
See,
It is.
I knew. Stories sell and facts tell. Okay,
Yeah,
I got it right. I got it
right.
right now.
There you go.
And why I brought that up is the reason I brought it up is because I'm working with so many companies lately, Terry. And let me introduce ourselves first of all. This is Chet Tart and Terry Lyles. Okay, we did something different. I did that all purposely so that someone, what is he doing?
We want to shock them to get them to listen. Like, what is he talking about? Well, what are we talking about? Well, we're getting ready to tell you. So, yeah.
We're talking about presentations are dreadful. When I see so many people doing proposals and presentation, it's nothing but reading off slides.
Right.
And back in the broadcast days, I've learned a lot about teasing people. You also give speeches, and you got to prepare for that also in getting people's interest. I'm told today with the new TikTok environment
Mhm.
is that if you don't get them in the first 3 to 5 seconds, you don't get them.
Exactly.
Morning, Terry. So, how do you prepare for when you give speeches? What is that? What is the tools that you use?
Don't tell a joke.
I've heard that.
That's old school stuff, You can, but my whole philosophy, and I've spoken thousands and thousands of times over the decades. I mean, I speak for a living in large companies, small companies,
Right.
groups that invested like yours. I mean, literally, I don't even know how many times, thousands and thousands of times over 3 decades of doing this. So I've learned how not to do it correctly by failing forward. But I want to connect with people. So to me, there's a couple of three things that are absolutely critical if you're really going to deliver a presentation, a keynote speech, whatever that might be, to get them in the first 30 seconds to 10 seconds down to 10 minutes to all day if you need to. It's you have to be authentic. You've got to be willing to expose who you're not. Don't praise about all the great things you do. They're going to figure that out through your presentation, perhaps, but start with authenticity and why I'm here. I'm here today because, Chet, fill in the blank. That's how I start. I'm here because I need you to understand you can make 1% change in your life and change your life. Take one thing away from today's presentation from me, one thing, and it could change your life. Or you could take nothing away and you stay the same and it all costs the same. That's how I start because at some point they're like, okay, I could take one thing away that this dude says for a 90 minutes or 60 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't know what that one thing is. I let them figure it out. And then I give them a stress test. And then they're all freaking out because they realize they're burnt out. And then I got them. And I'm like, look, that's your admission. That's not mine. So are you ready to listen? Let's go. I have a few
Mhm.
facts and a lot of stories. Let's go.
Normally, I start out with a story, and the story is about something emotional or something I didn't know, and then I wrap it into what my presentation is.
Yeah,
But
it's
in
good.
a business, when you're doing a presentation, you got to talk to them about who they are. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are people now. We're connected with people rather than organizations. If
Right.
you look at some podcast out there, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is incredibly powerful because he's a person.
Mhm.
And MSNBC, CNN, and Fox has less viewers than Joe Rogan because I
Yes.
think we want to be connected
Fine.
with people and also hear a story. I also like to start out with after that story is done, is go over what I'm going to do like you did. There's three things you're going to get out of this.
Mhm.
And talk about that so that they're prepared. Now, as I move along, I like to do some teases. This is all the radio background teases,
Right.
teases, teases,
Right.
because teases never deliver, they just tease.
They just tease.
There
That is
used
their
to be a
thing.
there used to be a show on television called Entertainment Tonight, and if you watch the show, there's no stories. It was all teasing. It was
Right.
all teasing. So I make a list. I want to share my list with you of how to know you're doing a great tease. And a tease is important to get your whole presentation together. Will it get them to listen from the first word? That's important to me. Will they care enough to put anything down, including their phone, to listen? Now that's
Right.
powerful. Will they remember and make the effort to be there at the time you're talking mentally? Is it clear? Is it relevant to them? So now you have to know your audience. Does it involve them directly with stories? And I think that's critically important. You know, my story, you got to know who my audience is. And do I plant an image in their mind? Because being in the radio, the only thing you have is your voice. And the three things we had were the words, the tonality, and our physiology, which you really never saw, but you could see it in the way we moved around in the studio. So I want to make sure that I preempt them from all distractions. And that's important to me. And then I get into it. And at the end, I like to find something that will drop the mic. I don't know
Yes.
if you have something like that also, because I like what you're talking about. If you walk away with one thing and one
Yes.
thing only, we have both come together and we both did a great job.
Yeah, and I use a three-tier process in my preparation for what I do. It's connect, influence, lead.
That's great. I like that.
And it's real, and lead means change. That means they could walk out with one change. So if I don't first connect, I'm never going to influence them. And our show is called Influence Today. What do we influence with? Stories, conversations, interesting people, but you got to connect with the listener. And like you say, you and I did radio together for years, separately and together. And radio people struggle going into TV a lot of times because, or they don't struggle as much because they are storytellers. You had to learn how to tell stories in radio because I can't say if you see the poster behind me or the prompter to my, you gotta paint the picture. The weather is this. I see the wind blowing versus they're just talking and there's a visual, going on behind them. So I think great storytellers and learning how to do that is not magic. It's be authentic, tell your own screw ups and relatable stories that impacted your life and the learning lessons you have. So my slides are a few bullet points with a few words and a story, another story, perhaps another story, and then another screen with a couple of words on it, another story. But in those stories, explain why those details matter. So when they walk out, influence second, but first I had to connect in the first 2 minutes or less, influence them by the storytelling to make them understand, like, I need to know that knowledge, whatever that knowledge is. And then
Hmm.
you give them an opportunity to change. That's why I start with take out one thing and I end with jot down one thing you're going to take out of here today.
I think you need to get some tools to watch if you want to do a great presentation. Steve Jobs did a great presentation when he's presenting his new iPhone. If you
Yes.
watch that video on YouTube, you'll see how he paints the pictures. I love the comment, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yes.
You know, that was some of the things he talked about. The other one is watch TED Talks. Each
Mhm.
one of them are well trained and well crafted because you cannot do a TED Talk unless you've been trained and well crafted. And they always start with a picture and they always start with a story to get you
Mhm.
involved. And the last part of that is always find something you can drop the mic with. And once in a while, I'll look at something, I'll say, and by the way, Winston Churchill said the following comment. So there are many, many things you can copy and be prepared. And I do think you can wrap this around in your presentation, your business presentation,
Mhm.
because it's about them. Most business presentations is about the business, and it really should be about them.
Yeah, and I want to say this too because this really impacted me years 30 years ago when I was young, starting out and doing this thing and hadn't really done that many gigs. I mean, I'd done some, but not like I do now. And I remember I would, the speakers bureaus would all hire the same kind of
Hmm.
people. they were cookie cutter. And I never went through the speakers bureau because I didn't understand it. I'm just like, look, I don't know. I get responses the way I do it. I'm gonna keep doing it. So if a speakers bureau group would try to contact me, it basically, this was back 90s. They would say, you need to like basic writing. You say what you're going to say, you say it, and you tell them what you said, and you start
Yeah.
that way. You basically give them the whole story up front. I never was really keen on that. I want to take them on a movie ride. I'm going to
I
tease
like
you with the
that. I
trailer,
like that. Yeah.
and there's going to be a beginning, there's going to be a middle, there's going to be a love story and a breakup, there's going to be some tragedy, and there's going to be a resolution at the end. And by the time they're done, the wow factor is they walk out going like, I am not as bad as I thought I was because the dude on stage is more screwed up than I am, and he helped me. So at some point you go like, what? Because I tell the story about my deceased son and how we lived with him when he passed as a special needs kid. That's my bang at the
Yeah,
end.
that's your
I'm
great
like,
story.
what
Yeah.
are you stressed out over? This is what taught me over almost 40 years of doing that.
I want to end with a comment about Warren Buffett. What do you think he's famous for?
I mean,
Investments.
money,
Investments.
money, money, money.
But he
Exactly.
has a comment and he said, the most important thing in life is to be able to public speak. He
Yes.
said it gives you the competitive advantage. And he has gone down a list of things and he said without public speaking, he would never be a great investor. So think about that last comment from Warren Buffett.
Yeah, and I'll end with this as I know we're out of time. I want to, it just, number one fear in America has been for years. I'm not sure if it is now. You can probably Google it and find out, but it's public speaking. A lot of people freak out. I've been a speaker coach for a lot of executives and CEOs, presidents of companies that would literally just panic to go in front of their crew and talk, like panic. And I'd check the ums they would have, and just you just go through all that process. It's really interesting because if that's your biggest fear is speaking in public, Seinfeld once said that means if you go to a funeral and you're doing the eulogy, you'd rather be in the coffin than doing the eulogy because you're afraid of dying on stage. And it's so interesting to me that love what you're doing, be authentic, and don't think about what you're trying to say. Think about the influence of people you're trying to touch.
Right. And B, you have to prepare to get rid of
Yes.
these. There's two words I'm hearing constantly, like uh, something like that, or I
Yes.
don't know why people fill the blanks with
They're thinking, their brain is processing because either they're nervous and or they're ill prepared.
but that dead spot, that dead air piece is so strong and so powerful. So
And in,
think
and
about
in,
that.
and in radio, it's silence is deadly. I mean, we learned that if you use silence, it better follow with something really powerful because
Mhm.
everybody's going like, "Well, hello, I'm listening. What are you going to tell me?" And then they just move on to the next one. It's like, no, that wasn't silence. They were hiccuping.
The pause factor works so much. Thanks,
Yes,
Terry, for this wonderful conversation today
you're
about
welcome.
communications, about presentations. If you're looking to get help and would you like some great help with doing your presentations, you can call either one of us. Terry, how do we get in touch with you?
TerryLyles.com, TerryLyles.com. We've talked about it so many times before. There's giveaways on there. I have PDF giveaways, PDF downloads, and you can inquire about coaching, training, and speaking and so forth. And I'd be glad to help anybody that needs that help.
That's great. And if you want to get in touch with me, all you have to do is pull out your keyboard, use your fingers. It's CTART at Vistage, VISTAGE, Florida.com. Thanks for listening to another edition of Influence Today, and we look forward to our next edition. But if you liked it, please hit the like button and also please share. If you think it's important that somebody else would like to get involved in listening to this podcast, we'd appreciate if you share with somebody else. Thanks for listening to Influence Today.